Welcome everyone this morning, and welcome to those of you online joining us as well. It's a lovely day at the moment. So yes, welcome however you're joining us today, however you're feeling, whatever's going on in your life at this time, you're very welcome here. I'm going to start with some words by Tess Baumberger. From the busyness of every day, we gather once a week to remember who we are, to dream of who we might become. As companions on this journey, we share the milestones we meet along the way. Individual moments of joy and sorrow become shared moments of comfort and celebration. We share this journey across differences of belief and opinion because we value diversity and because we care for one another. Today, as we take the next steps, let us notice our fellow travellers, the burdens that they carry, the songs that inspire their hearts. As we gather in beloved community, let us open the holy havens of our hearts. Let us share the sacred places of our souls. For we are pilgrims who share a common path. We travel this road together. And the theme of our service today is pilgrimage. Before we go any further, I'm going to light our chalice candle and invite those of you joining us online to light one yourselves, wherever you may be. This is the symbol of our free Unitarian faith. May this flame be a symbol of the light that guides us, always, leading us along life's meandering pathways towards greater understanding, truer insight, and deeper compassion. Blessed be. So our hymns this morning do reflect the theme, and the first one is, I think it's one of our favourites from the Purple Hymn Book. It is number 186, and it is We Are Travellers on a Journey. I quite often end a service with this one, but I have an even more rousing hymn to finish with, so I'll leave you in suspense on that. But this is We Are Travellers on a Journey.
When rhinos of explode
Our prayer this morning is in the form of a reworking of Psalm, or part of Psalm 119 by Carla Grosch Miller. The ancient way lies before me, the way of my mothers and my fathers. It is the way of life. Strong life, courageous life, kind life. A way that beholds beauty and welcomes wonder. A way that nurtures knowledge and wrestles wisdom. A way that fosters freedom and bespeaks blessing. I seek to follow well-worn paths to new places, moving by divine impulse and breath, stopping to give thanks along the way, dancing joy and laughing pleasure, wiping tears and lending strength, sheltering the vulnerable and feeding the hungry. This is my great desire, day by day and moment by moment, for your life, O Divine Spirit, to be my light and my love for all time. Let's just take a few moments in silence for your own thoughts and prayers. And at this time too, let us just offer our hope for our country as it begins a new stage. And we wish our leaders and our representatives wisdom, compassion, kindness and courage, just as we wish for ourselves to do the best we can. Amen. And our story this morning is a Sufi story. It's the journey of the stream. Some of you may be familiar with it. I chose it because it is about a journey, in this case of a stream, but I think the stream faces some of the challenges that maybe we also face when we go on a journey. So a stream from its course in far-off mountains, passing through every kind and description of countryside, at last reached the sands of the desert. Just as it had crossed every other barrier, the stream tried to cross this one, but found that as fast as it ran into the sand, its waters disappeared. It was convinced, however, that its destiny was to cross the desert, and yet there seemed to be no way. But then a hidden voice coming from the desert itself whispered, "The wind crosses the desert, and so can the stream." The stream objected. It was dashing itself against the sand and only getting absorbed. The wind could fly. That was why the wind could cross a desert. But the voice returned. By hurtling in your own accustomed way, you cannot get across, said the voice. You will either disappear or become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over to your destination. But how could this happen? Asked the stream. By allowing yourself to be absorbed by the wind, came the answer. Well, this idea was not at all acceptable to the stream. After all, it had never been absorbed before. It did not want to lose its individuality or change the habits of a lifetime. Anyway, once it was absorbed, how would it know it would ever reappear? But the sand had an answer. The wind, it said, performs this function. It takes up water, carries it over the desert, and then lets it fall again. Falling as rain, the stream becomes a river once more. But how can I know this is true? Asked the stream. It is so, and if you do not believe it, you cannot become more than a quagmire. And even that could take many, many years. Certainly not the same as being a stream. Can't I just remain the same stream that I am today? Said the stream. You cannot, in either case, remain the same, the whisper said. Your essential part is carried away and forms a stream again. You are called what you are even today, because you do not know which part of yourself is the essential one. When it heard this, certain echoes began to arise in the thoughts of the stream. Dimly, it did remember a state in which it, or maybe some part of it, had been held in the arms of the wind. It also remembered, or did it, that this was the real thing, not necessarily the obvious thing to do. But as the stream raised its vapour into the welcoming arms of the wind, which gently and easily bore it upwards and along, letting it fall softly as soon as they reached the roof of a mountain many, many miles away, and because it had its doubts, the stream was able to remember and record more strongly in its minds, this time, the details of the experience as it fell and reappeared as a different stream, but still a stream. It reflected, yes, now I have learned my true identity. The story of the stream and its journey. Now our reading, Anne is going to share with us, and it comes from the writer Robert Macfarlane, who he wrote a book, I think he's written several, but he wrote a book called The Old Ways, A Journey on Foot. And he writes a lot about walking, including pilgrimage, and these are some of his words. Thank you, Anne.
We are increasingly on pilgrimage. In Spain, medieval hostelries on the road to Santiago closed for centuries. They are reopening to cater to the volume of new custom along the Camino. Across Europe, a revival is underway, with pilgrimage numbers steadily increasing, even as church-going figures steadily fall. Across faiths and denominations, down the green lanes of England, along the dusty roads of Spain, up the cobbled streets of Alpine towns, through the mild deserts of Israel and the West Bank, around the sacred peaks of the Himalayas, over the frozen lakes of Russia, and along the holy rivers of India, Millions of pilgrims are on the move, bearing crosses, palm branches, flaming torches, flower garlands, prayer flags, and overstuffed rucksacks, clutching scuffed wooden staffs or shiny trekking poles, and tramping, prostrating, hobbling, begging, and believing their ways onwards, travelling by aeroplane, car, bus, horseback, and bicycle, but most often on foot and over considerable distances. For physical hardship remains a definitive aspect of most pilgrimage. Arduous passage through the outer landscape, prompting subtle exploration of the inner.
Thank you, Anne. And our second hymn is all about leaving behind your bags and baggage, which often people, yes, they might have a rucksack, but they've usually left behind their ordinary lives and hope to leave behind some of their baggage, both literal and metaphorical, when they go on pilgrimage. So this is hymn number 87 in the Purple Hymn Books. It is one we've sung before, although perhaps not that often. It's called Leave Behind Your Bags and Baggage. Let's sing. And let's come now to just a quiet time of reflection. This is time for you, time to use as feels right for you in the quietness. So you may like to pray or to meditate, to watch your breathing or listen to the sounds around you or to think your own thoughts, whatever feels right at this time. And after a couple of minutes or so, we'll have some reflective music. So what's the difference really between going on a pilgrimage and just going for a walk? Is there any? Both may have a destination, a direction of travel, an end point in mind, and both may well be good for the soul. But there is something different, I think, about the intention behind going on a pilgrimage. The intention of pilgrimage is at some level to be consciously open to the possibility of renewal or transformation, however great or small that may be. And it's a spiritual practice that has deep roots and is widespread across different faiths. And increasingly, as we heard, it's also the idea of it and the intention behind it is also popular with people of no faith. I think anyone who is seeking meaning in their lives might be looking for an experience that somehow takes them out of their everyday experience and immerses them in a different kind of space, in a more liminal space, if you like. It always feels like something is possible when you do that. So I like a pilgrimage myself. I recently walked St. Cuthbert's Way, which is a very old path, and it's about 65 miles long, and you start in Melrose in Scotland and you end up on Holy Island in Lindisfarne in Northumbria. I don't think it's not called St. Cuthbert's Way because he actually walked that path himself, but he did grow up near the Melrose Abbey, and he later became prior there, and he was eventually made Bishop of Lindisfarne. And then in order to lead an even more contemplative life and really a more austere life, he moved out to a hermitage on the more remote Farne Islands. So I wasn't intending to follow his footsteps quite that far, but the destination of the beautiful Holy Island with its ancient priory and its beautiful church and its castle and its wonderful seascapes and skyscapes felt like a suitable destination to be holding in mind on the week's walk, that sense of going somewhere that has something holy about it that perhaps is hard to put into words, but although, I know we understand that everywhere can be holy, but there are some places that somehow have a kind of a feeling about them that feels a little bit somewhere where you yourself can feel more open to holiness and more open to God or spirit. But as with most things, the journey is at least, if not more, as important as the destination. So being outdoors all day, in the elements, walking through woodland, alongside streams, fast flowing sometimes, and the very wide River Tweed, which is very beautiful, climbing the quite majestic Cheviot Hills, crossing the boundary between Scotland and England, which was marked by an incredibly simple, understated just post with England, Scotland. No border controls there. And staying in small towns and hostels along the way. It just became the way of life for the week. And part of pilgrimage, I think, is about that rhythm of having a very simple, repeated rhythm for your day. So, it was get up, have breakfast, set off on the road, stop for a simple lunch of cheese and oatcakes and apples and some water, and set off again until reaching wherever we were staying in the evening. Have a shower, much needed by that point. Change into the only kind of evening outfit. There's nothing very evening outfit about it, but a different change of clothes for the evening, and then go and find somewhere to eat and drink, come back, go to sleep. And that's the rhythm of every day. And there's something just very soothing about that. Very few decisions have to be made. When you go on a pilgrimage, the path already exists. The destination is already known. There's plenty of time to think or simply to be in touch with the earth and the sky and to be surrounded by nature, even if that does sometimes mean getting soaked and cold, as indeed we were at times. Pilgrimage implies paring life down to its essentials, taking away some of the distractions, or as many of the distractions perhaps as possible. And of course it is challenging at times. But more importantly, one enters a different kind of head space, I think, as I said, away from your kind of ordinary time into a deeper sort of time, a more sacred time, a kind of thin space. I thought of the path as being in itself quite a thin space to be walking along. And just putting one foot in front of the other, basically. Very simple. Whether it's over rocky or sandy or muddy or hilly ground, that's the practice. And it resonates across the centuries or even the millennia, because after all, paths are made, have been made in the past by animals following them, by people traveling along repeated routes over and over again. And I felt I was aware of my part in treading that path and helping to keep it. It is only the footsteps along it that keep it a path. And was acutely aware of the connection with the ancestors who'd walked this path before, and also with humans of the future who I know would be walking it again. And no doubt there are many people walking it right now. And the awareness, I think, that at whatever time we may have been walking or will be walking, there's the same sky and the same sun and the same moon and the same hills and rivers. They may change course a little bit, but essentially the same. And that sense of being completely immersed in the fabric and the continuity of time. So I think it's not surprising that pilgrimage has been part of religious practice and continues to be. And it's not surprising either that people who would say they don't have a faith also benefit from the spiritual, or they appreciate the spiritual benefits of taking such a journey. Another part of it is along the way, of course, you always meet other pilgrims, you meet other walkers and strangers, and there's a chance to share your stories, which is another really enriching part of the process. I recently was watching some of the BBC series called Pilgrimage, which some of you might have seen. I think it's quite good. I mean, some of the so-called celebrities can be a bit annoying, to be honest, but but also they share their stories and they reveal stuff about their lives, their experiences of grief and loss and lostness, and yeah, it's moving, and I think that is what pilgrimage can loosen up in people. So I realise that you may be thinking, oh, that's all very nice, but I don't have the time to do that, and also maybe don't have the physical capacity to do that, to hike for miles over mountains or along riverbanks. But I do believe that the essence of pilgrimage is available to everybody. As Mary Oliver put it in one of her best-known poems, you do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. And sure, Macfarlane wrote that physical hardship remains a definitive aspect of most pilgrimage, which is true, but it doesn't mean that you or I have to walk the Camino or climb Everest. When nature writer Jacqueline Bain found she was no longer able to manage long distances or climb steep hills because of her own mobility problems, she took her focus into her own garden. Walking to one end of it and back became her physical challenge and her pilgrimage. And that was physical challenge for her. So everything can be scaled. And she learned, I think she gained so many insights by watching the tiny lives, or the lives of the tiny creatures that she found herself sharing that journey with. It's amazing how enlightening a wasp or a beetle can be. So the essential elements of pilgrimage are available. They can be on your own doorstep, in your own garden, in our church spiral, even sitting in your own chair, in your imagination. Like our spiral, a labyrinth, such as the famous one at Chartres, is intended to provide a short opportunity for pilgrimage. The invitation, as with any pilgrimage, is to enter it carrying a spiritual question of your own. Could be anything. It might be, what am I being called towards now? What is it I'm seeking? Or help. Could be anything. But to walk mindfully in and follow the twists and the turns of the labyrinth, and then holding that question that you've travelled with in your heart when you reach the centre for a little while before slowly reversing, walking back out again. And the process, of course, is to mirror, to symbolise going into the deep subconscious. Actually, I always think a labyrinth looks a little bit like a cross-section through a brain, a simplified one anyway. And just dwelling there, taking time there before gradually returning out to the more conscious world again. It has exactly the same idea that there may be some sort of renewal, some kind of transformation, even if it's just a little perspective shifted, a problem illuminated, maybe. What's required really is not physical strength or great bravery. It's really to take whatever journey you go on with the intention, but importantly without any expectation, but more with a kind of openness, a boundless openness. You make yourself open to what may come along the way, a kind of curiosity and willingness to let the divine work through you. And I think people who, when they go on pilgrimages, they do feel subtly, or sometimes more than subtly, changed by the experience, just by giving yourself that time away and immersing yourself in that liminality. Of course, it's perfectly possible to travel, to join pilgrimages to Walsingham or Lourdes and keep your mind, heart and closed, and probably not much will change. But it's also possible to walk into your own backyard and come back slightly different. What makes the difference is your attitude and your willingness and your openness to let go, like the stream had to let go, to let yourself be carried, to take the risk of losing yourself for a little while and trusting that you'll find yourself again slightly different on the other side. Blessed be. I felt we couldn't have a service about pilgrimage without singing the Pilgrim's Hymn. It's a very old hymn, and it has some quite old language in it. So it's a lot of he's and hymns. So I always like to play around with that myself. It's entirely up to you what you do, but if you'd like to sing she and her or they and them or whatever you would like to do, that's absolutely fine. Feel free. It's quite a rousing hymn, I think, and yeah, I hope you enjoy singing it. So let's sing hymn number 150, this time in the green hymn books, the Pilgrim's Hymn. going to share some closing words with you and a closing video. And then, of course, Sheila will share the notices. And I know you're aware that there will be a congregational meeting too. So not too long a service today. God bless the path on which you go, the earth beneath your feet, your destination. God be a smooth way before you, a guiding star above you, a keen eye behind you, this day, this night, and forever. May the Spirit be with you whatever you pass, whatever you climb, wherever you stay. With you at each step and each sea, at each lying down and each rising up. In the trough of the waves, on the crest of the billows, each step of the journey you take. Amen.